Welcome to Pigskin Frenzy on a lovely Tuesday afternoon. Thank you for joining us here. Uh, I'm Joel Norris, and we have some more news out of college football. Tuesdays are going to be about college football. Thursdays episodes are going to be about NFL football. So join us for that also. Thank you for listening or watching, whether you're listening on Spotify. Make sure to follow and like each episode on Spotify. Share around with others. Don't forget to follow and subscribe and share around on Podbean, whether you're listening on there. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the episode, and leave a comment under or if you have any thoughts of today's episode. Thank you for joining us again. Once again, I'm Joel Norris, and again, thank you for the support and listening and watching of Pigskin Frenzy. News out of Knoxville, Tennessee. We have recruiting violations and the continuing saga of former head coach Jeremy Pruitt and his ex-staff members, and we're going to talk about that and the latest updates on that and what does it mean for Tennessee and the repercussions for Tennessee football going forward. We're also going to have news out of Indianapolis. The Big Ten Conference is looking to add some more teams and maybe look to expand the conference. So a proposed move has been looking is in place. So we're going to look at that and what does that mean for college football, because that could shake up college football. Uh, Even though college football has already been shooken up quite enough. So let's get right down into the news. Going into Knoxville, Ross Dillinger from Sports Illustrated reported that four ex-staff members under Jeremy Pruitt, head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers, or former head coach of the Tennessee Volunteers, they have been received a show cause penalty. Show cause penalty, for those who are just now listening in, is a huge penalty to where you can not work for collegiate athletics according to the NCAA. And it kind of stinks. And what stinks about this is Tennessee is coming off their best football season that they have had probably since the early or late 1990s, early 2000s. They think about it. I mean, they went to the Orange Bowl, they beat Clemson, they beat Alabama, they beat LSU, they beat Florida all in a single year. They had the number one scoring offense in the country. They had number one in offensive proficiency. They have a solid head coach in Josh Heupel. They have had a potential Heisman finalist in Hendon Hooker before he got hurt. They had a Biletnikoff winner in Jalen Hyatt. They had a potential first round, late first round, early second round pick in Cedric Tillman. They had a 1-2 punch with Jabari Small and Jalen Wright. And they had a solid all around defense with that included edge rusher Byron Young. Tennessee had a spectacular season, and I feel like the recruiting violations still kind of creep into the back of Tennessee's, shoulders and mind and neck, and just it's sad. I mean, especially for what they're doing now, and they're doing big things now. I mean, they had a top 10 recruiting class this season. They picked up a top 3 quarterback for the 2023 year. That is the future of Tennessee football. The future of Tennessee football is bright, but at the same time, you got to wonder what are the repercussions that Tennessee is going to face due to these violations. Uh, Jeremy Pruitt caused a lot of trouble with these recruiting violations. Uh, he was a solid coach at Alabama. He was a solid coach, and he was an okay coach at Tennessee. Not too bad, not too great, not to the standard that Tennessee would like, but these violations could cause repercussions for Tennessee's future. Do I know exactly what could it cause and what penalties and what repercussions for Tennessee could come about this? No, I don't think anybody does until an announcement's been made. However, this doesn't look good for the program, and it's kind of sad because of what has happened and transpired this past season with their football team and their success on the field. So, uh, shocking, but at the same time, kind of a bummer for Tennessee. for a program that has had so much success this past season and will probably continue to have some success this year. What they need to do is block out the noise of that, go play Tennessee football that they know they can, and try to have a solid spring, have a solid off season, and get ready to have a solid 2023 season and try to recapture some of that magic they had in 2022. Now, going into Indianapolis out of the Big Ten Conference, some more moves are looking to be made. According to College Football Insider Matt Hayes, there's been 2 to 4 teams of the Big Ten has proposed for a potential move to the Big Ten, all out of the Pac-12 conference. Those teams are Oregon, Washington, California, and Stanford. Huge news, by the way. It all started, the college football conference realignment all started with Texas and Oklahoma leaving the Big 12 to go to the Southeastern Conference, the SEC. And then it kind of just shifted into another gear when USC and UCLA have left the Pac-12 to go to the Big Ten Conference, and they are leaving in 2024 to make that move. Now the Big Ten is not done. They want more of the Big 12, the Pac-12, and in a way, it's kind of shocking almost, and not really shocking to the point where okay, the Big Ten is going to add more teams. It's kind of shocking to the point where it's like we've been so used to the Pac-12 for so long. Now it's like, what does this do to them? Um, it's not going to hurt anybody with the SEC. It's not going to hurt the Big Ten certainly. But what is this going to do for the Pac-12? What does this do for them? They're coming off of a media deal or a media negotiation. The rumor is Apple TV. I haven't been confirmed or denied that by anyone. But I mean, what does this do for them? They're already losing USC, a team that is nationally known for football and nationally known uh, in in around the world. And they have been kind of the stable leader for that conference, along with Oregon and Washington and Utah. And uh, it's just kind of shocking once you think about it. What's this do to the Pac-12? What's the financial strength going to look like? What's the media deal is going to look like? Because if you're talking about that big of a move, you got to think what's going to happen to the Pac-12. Uh, those are questions that are going to be obviously answered if a move takes place, and we're going to see what happens to the Pac-12 if they go after somebody else. There's a lot of questions to be asked. It makes you think, okay, so if this happens, what's going to happen? Not only that, what's recruiting going to look like for the Big Ten? If they added an Oregon, if they added a Washington, you have Dan Lanning in there. You have Lincoln Riley going to be in there. You have Chip Kelly going to be in there. You have Ryan Day going to be in there. You're going to have Jim Harbaugh be in there. Mel Tucker. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. Luke Fickell is in Wisconsin now. Matt Rule's in Nebraska. You're going to have a super conference competing against the SEC, and that's another thing we can talk about now. Is no longer is college football going to be about okay, you can go to the Pac-12. You can have the Big Ten, you can have the ACC, you have the SEC. It's not the Power Five. It's and the Big 12, if you add the Big 12 in there, but it's not the Power Five anymore. It's looking more and more, more and more looking like it's the Power Two, the Power Two. And the Power Two is SEC, Big Ten, and then there's everybody else. This doesn't really necessarily affect the group of five that much. But this could affect recruiting. This could affect media deals. This could affect what happens to the Pac-12, the ACC, and this really could affect, I mean, what college football is going forward. I mean, this is huge. Going in, we didn't think Oklahoma and Texas were going to join the SEC. We heard it was talk, but we didn't know it was actually going to happen. Then the jump actually made official. They are joining the SEC, and they're not joining the SEC in 2025 anymore. They're joining it in 2024. They're doing it a year early. I was stunned when I heard the news. I think a lot of people were stunned to hear and see the news that they were joining the SEC. And then the Big Ten felt like, okay, to combat the SEC, we had to do something. We have to create some spark. They did that by getting UCLA and USC in there, two uh, recruiting juggernauts, actually, due to location of Los Angeles. Now they got two of the top teams out in California now in their conference. So the Big Ten is going to be a recruiting juggernaut. The SEC is going to be a recruiting juggernaut as always. But the questions remain: what does this do for the Big 12? What does this do for the ACC? What does this do for the Pac 12? My thoughts exactly: if this move happens, I think we see the last of the Pac 12. Honestly, at least as a top conference in college football. I think that Utah is going to be a good one, but how long would it be if until Utah moved? Moved out of the Pac-12. If the Big Ten is getting rid of getting Oregon, California, Washington, Stanford, and then all you have is Colorado with Coach Prime now there, and you have Kyle Whittingham at Utah. How long is that going to be until the top two teams of there move out of the Pac-12? What's the ACC going to look like? They have to get a media deal. I mean, what's Florida State and Clemson going to do? The two top teams in the ACC. What's it all going to look like? And if I had a prediction, I would think the Pac-12 uh, is the last. I think we've seen the last of the Pac-12 as we know it, starting in 2024. I think we've seen the Pac-12, the last of the Pac-12 as we know it today, at least as a top Power Five college football conference uh, in college football in general. But the ACC, I couldn't really say anything about the ACC. The ACC's there. We have to get more and more and more, updates, I would think, from the ACC. I know that their finances are not the best right now, but the Pac 12 is looking like it's more in trouble with this proposed move coming because recruits are all going to be a part of the SEC and Big Ten, and that's another thing about conference realignments is recruiting for other conferences, because now they're like, okay, with all these moves happening, it's now thinking, now you're got to think, okay, if you're an ACC school or if you're a Pac-12 school or if you're a Big 12 school, you got to think, okay, uh, now I got to try to find a way to get a hold of that player and tell him not to go to the SEC in Big Ten, which is going to be extremely hard for the amount of teams that they are about to have in each conference. 16 in the SEC, fixing to be 16 in the Big Ten, possibly more in the Big Ten if a proposed move has been made official for Oregon or Washington, and or Oregon, Washington, California, and Stanford. So things aren't looking good for the Pac-12. Things aren't looking good for the ACC right now as a whole. College football uh, is getting the benefit from it. It's entertaining. It's fun as a fan and as a spectator to look at all these moves and say, oh, okay, this is interesting. We have an Oregon in the Big Ten. And then another question is, how is scheduling going to be? That's another question. How is scheduling going to be when you're I mean, with a bunch of teams and a bunch of schools in that conference? I mean, an Oregon playing in Ohio State every year, uh, Ohio State going out west to play USC every year, Wisconsin going to face California every year. Those are some interesting matchups. And not only that, it's it's money. It's all about money, and I mean, I can't wait to see it. Honestly, it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. We're going to have a lot of things to discuss about that in the future. The Big Ten is looking to keep on expanding, and the SEC is not going to go anywhere at all. I mean, that's going to be always the top juggernaut for the Big Ten, the SEC. My thoughts on it are the SEC, Big Ten, it's the Power Two. It's no longer the Power Five. It's the Power Two, and then the Big 12, ACC, and Pac 12 are just on the looking in, on the looking in. And I wouldn't even say the Pac 12 is even looking in. I would say this could probably be the last we see of the Pac 12 as we know it. So again, big news coming out of both Knoxville, big news coming out of Indianapolis. It's honestly uh, a big move for college football if this happens. Recruiting is going to be a huge thing. The money, the media deals, the scheduling is going to be a huge thing. And the matchups will be interesting. So there's pros and cons to it. The matchups will be definitely interesting for college football as well. Thank you for joining us here on Pigskin Frenzy. That's all the time we have today. Like on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, and leave a comment on YouTube. Follow on Podbean, share around on Podbean, download Podbean on the App Store, the Play Store, and you can go on podbean.com and listen to it on your laptop or desktop. You can also listen to it on Spotify, share around on Spotify, follow on Spotify, and share around with others. Thank you again so much for listening to Pigskin Frenzy. I'm Joel Norris. So long, and we will see you Thursday with an NFL edition of Pigskin Frenzy.